The room is full. You can feel that. Bodies close enough to brush shoulders. 100 conversations layered on top of each other, so dense they turn into a single hum. Someone laughs too loud near the door. Ice shifts in a glass. A hand touches an arm in greeting. You are standing in the middle of it, and you have never felt more alone. Not the alone of an empty apartment, not the alone of a quiet Sunday. A different kind. The kind that only shows up when you're surrounded. The kind that feels almost cruel, because logically, you shouldn't be able to feel it here. Not with this many people close enough to touch. You assume it's a contradiction, a glitch in your own wiring. It isn't. Here's the part most people get wrong. They think loneliness is a head count. 0 people, you're lonely. A room full of people, you're not. Simple math. But loneliness was never counting bodies. It was counting something else the whole time. Researchers at UCLA built a scale decades ago to measure this properly, because, are you lonely? Turns out to be a bad question. People lie to themselves about it. So the scale asks something quieter instead. How often do you feel left out? How often do you feel like no one really knows you? How often are you surrounded and still feel invisible? And the answers didn't sort themselves by how many people were in the room. They sorted themselves by something else, whether the people around you actually saw you. Not your face, not your name, you. The version of you that exists underneath the small talk. A room of 100 strangers can score higher on that loneliness scale than a single evening spent with one person who actually knows you. That's not a metaphor, that's data. So the room isn't the problem. The room was never the problem. It gets stranger. In the early 2000s, a researcher named Naomi Eisenberger put people into a brain scanner and had them play a simple ball tossing game with 2 other players, except the other players weren't real, they were programmed, and at some point, they stopped throwing the ball to the person in the scanner, just stopped, left them out. The brain lit up exactly where it lights up during physical pain, the anterior cingulate cortex, the same region that fires when you burn your hand on a stove. Being excluded doesn't feel like sadness first. It registers as pain, real, physical, measurable pain. Your nervous system does not distinguish cleanly between a broken bone and being frozen out of a conversation, which means that hum of 100 people around you, if none of them are truly throwing the ball your way, isn't neutral background noise. It's an environment your brain is quietly logging as harm. Now go back further, before parties, before rooms, before any of this. For most of human history, you lived in groups of somewhere between 50 and 150 people. Anthropologists call this Dunbar's number, the rough ceiling on how many relationships a human brain can actually track with any depth. Not names, depth, who you can trust, who owes you, who would notice if you vanish. Inside that number, everyone was known. There was no such thing as a stranger in your own tribe. Recognition wasn't a luxury, it was survival. Being unseen by your group meant being unprotected by it. Your brain still runs on that software. But you don't live in groups of 150 anymore. You live in cities of millions. You walk through hallways of coworkers who know your job title and nothing else. You sit in rooms full of people your nervous system correctly identifies as strangers, not because it's broken, but because it's accurate. 100 faces you don't know isn't a tribe. It's noise that looks like a tribe. And somewhere underneath the party, underneath the laughter and the ice in the glasses, an ancient part of you is running the oldest calculation it knows. Am I known here? Would anyone notice if I left? When the answer comes back no, it doesn't file that as an opinion, it files it as danger. So here's the pivot, here's the part worth sitting with. That ache you feel in a crowded room isn't a malfunction. It isn't proof that something is wrong with you. It's a signal working exactly as designed. A very old alarm, built for a very different world, going off because the thing it's built to detect, genuine recognition, is actually missing. The feeling isn't lying to you. It's telling you the truth about the room, which means the fix was never be around more people. You already tried that tonight, and it didn't work, and now you know why. The fix was never proximity. It was never head count. It was always about being known by someone, even one person who could pick your voice out of that hum, one person who would notice specifically if you left. Loneliness isn't the punishment for being alone, it's the cost of being unseen. So picture the room again, same party, same 100 conversations blurring into one long sound, same ice in the same glasses. But look closer this time. Somewhere in that crowd, there might be exactly one person whose eyes would find yours if you left. One person tracking you the way your ancestors once tracked the 50 or so people who mattered. That's not a small thing. That was never a small thing. The room was never too full to feel lonely in. It was just waiting for you to notice who, in all that noise, actually knew you were there.